The night was calm, the streets almost empty, only a few lamps glowing weak light across the road. Among the shadows, a girl walked slowly, her hood pulled low over her face. She looked normal at first glance, but anyone who paid close attention would notice something strange. Behind her, hidden under her cloak, something moved, almost alive, almost glowing. It was her tail, long, smooth, and covered in faint blue lines that pulsed like fire, trapped under glass. She tried to hide it, always pulling her cloak tighter when people passed. But tonight, a small group of young men noticed her. They were laughing, bored, and looking for something unusual to entertain themselves. One of them pointed, whispering to the others, "Look at her! She's hiding something. Maybe she's a thief, maybe worse." The girl heard them, but kept walking, her pace quickening. She hoped they would leave her alone. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. The tallest one stepped forward, blocking her path. "Hey, why so secretive? Were you hiding under that cloak?" he said, his voice playful but sharp. The others circled her, their footsteps echoing on the empty street. Her heart raced. The blue lines on her tail pulsed faster, brighter. She pulled the cloak closer, whispering softly, "Please don't just let me go." But the leader grinned, his eyes glinting with mischief. With a sudden move, he reached out and tugged at her cloak. For a split second, the hidden tail flicked out, shining under the streetlight. The boys gasped. One of them even stepped back. "It's a tail?" "No way," one muttered. The leader, instead of being afraid, laughed louder. "What is this? Some kind of trick? A costume? Or are you some freak?" His laughter cut through her chest like a knife. Tears burned in her eyes, but before she could answer, he leaned forward. With his hand, he brushed the end of her tail, teasing, pulling at it like it was nothing more than a toy. And then everything changed. The tail erupted in blue fire. Not normal fire, not the red and yellow flames that humans knew. This was alive, bright, flowing like water, yet burning with an otherworldly light. The street turned blue. The walls glowed. Shadows danced like ghosts. The air itself seemed to vibrate, humming with strange energy. The boys froze, their faces pale. One dropped his phone in shock, another screamed and ran. But the leader stayed, his hand still tingling from where he touched her tail. The fire did not burn his skin, but he felt it crawl under his flesh. Alive, curious, almost speaking to him. The girl cried out, pulling her tail back, the fire wrapping around her body like a shield. Her eyes glowed faintly, the same blue fire dancing inside them. "Why did you touch it? Why didn't you listen?" she shouted. Her voice echoed down the empty street, louder than human lungs should allow. The leader stumbled back, trembling. This isn't real," he whispered. But deep inside, he knew it was real, too real. The fire wasn't just light, it was something else. It carried weight, it carried meaning. The girl tried to calm herself, her breaths heavy, her hands shaking. But the fire wouldn't fade, it flickered and snapped, eager to be free. She pressed her palms together, whispering words in a language no human had heard before. Slowly, the flames bent to her will, swirling around her like a storm held back by fragile glass. From the distance, a dog barked, car alarms went off. Windows lit up as people peeked outside, drawn by the strange blue glow. Phones began recording, voices whispered. "Look, what is that? Is it real? She's burning blue." The girl's chest tightened. She knew this was the beginning of the end. Humans were seeing something they were never meant to see. Something not from their world, not from their history. The secret she had carried for years was now alive in front of them. The fire crackled louder, almost answering the whispers of the crowd. The leader finally found his voice, pointing at her. "She's not human," he yelled. But no one answered him. They were too busy staring at the fire. The flames moved like a living creature, wrapping around the girl, protecting her, warning them, daring anyone to step closer. For a long moment, silence filled the street. Only the hum of the blue fire remained. And then, as if the world itself had woken, sirens screamed in the distance. Police, soldiers, scientists, someone had already called them. The secret was out, and nothing would ever be the same. The girl's eyes flicked from one face to another. Fear, anger, wonder, all reflected back at her. Her heart pounded. The tail lashed once, scattering sparks into the night sky. She whispered again, barely loud enough to hear, "Humanity, you were never ready for this." And with that, the blue fire surged higher, lighting up the city like a second moon. Every eye turned upward, every camera recorded. For the first time in history, humanity had seen something beyond their world, and they could never unsee it. The blue fire hung in the air like a living storm, its light washing over every wall, every window, every human face that dared to look. Nobody spoke for a moment, as if words themselves had no power here. Phones trembled in hands, red dots blinking, recording history without permission. And then the silence broke, not with screams, but with whispers. "Is it real? What is she?" The girl stood in the middle of the glowing street, her body framed by the fire that refused to die down. Her breathing was heavy, her hands trembling, yet her eyes still burned with that strange blue light. She wanted to run, to disappear, but the fire clung to her tail and skin like a shadow that would never let go. The leader who had touched her tail stumbled back against a wall, his face pale, his lips shaking without sound. He had mocked her minutes ago, but now he could not even look at her. Suddenly, a voice from the crowd called out, "Don't move. Stay where you are." It wasn't a soldier, not yet. It was a shopkeeper, trembling with fear, but too proud to run. He held a broken broom handle like a weapon, though his arms shook so much it almost slipped from his hands. The fire flared brighter in response, not because the girl wanted it, but because it sensed danger. People gasped as the flames spread across the ground in thin lines, like cracks of lightning frozen in blue glass, crawling across the concrete. Someone screamed. Someone else prayed. The girl closed her eyes, whispering again in that strange tongue. The fire obeyed her, but barely. It hissed like an animal refusing to be chained. And then the first sirens arrived. 2 police cars screeched to a halt, red and blue lights clashing against the alien glow. Officers stepped out slowly, their hands on their weapons, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had been told about a fire in the street, but this was not fire, this was something else. One of them raised a speaker, shouting, "Everyone step back. Move away from the light." The crowd obeyed, but they did not leave. No human could turn away from what they were seeing. History was unfolding in front of them, and curiosity chained them tighter than fear. Even the officers couldn't look away, their orders forgotten as they stared at the girl. Her hood had fallen, her face now visible, half human, half something else, glowing faintly in the blue storm. The leader of the boys finally found his voice. "She's dangerous. She's not one of us," he cried. But nobody joined him, not this time. Instead, the people stared at him with anger. They had seen who had touched her first, who had provoked her. Maybe she was dangerous, but maybe he was the reason the danger was here. The girl lowered her hands, her voice breaking. "I never wanted this. I only wanted to live," she whispered. Her words were soft, but the fire carried them, echoing across the street, reaching every ear. Even the police officers hesitated, their fingers loosening on their weapons. It didn't sound like the voice of a monster. It sounded like the voice of someone begging to be left alone. And then something even stranger happened. The fire began to move on its own. It floated upward, rising from her tail like smoke, curling into shapes that shimmered in the night. Faces, stars, symbols no one recognized. It was not only energy, it was memory, it was language. The fire was telling a story, and everyone who watched felt it, even if they could not understand it. A child in the crowd pointed and whispered, "She's showing us something." The shopkeeper lowered his broom. The officers froze in awe. Even the boy who had mocked her dropped his head, ashamed. The blue fire showed visions of stars far away, planets glowing in strange colors. And then it showed war, fire consuming entire skies, soldiers with tails like hers falling one by one. The girl's tears fell as the vision burned across the city walls. She was not attacking them, she was showing them. The fire was her voice, her memory, her warning. When the vision ended, the fire sank back into her body, leaving only faint sparks behind. The crowd stood in silence, their fear now mixed with something else, understanding. But understanding was fragile. More sirens came, louder, sharper, not police this time, but military. Dark trucks rolled in, headlights cutting through the blue haze. Soldiers poured out, forming lines, weapons raised, their faces hard and unshaken. They did not come to listen, they came to capture. The girl's heart sank. She had seen this before in another world, another war. Her tail lashed once, fire flickering in warning. The people who had just started to believe her now stepped back again, torn between fear and awe. The boy who had teased her whispered to himself, trembling, "What have I done? What did I wake up?" The soldiers closed in. The girl stood still, her fire humming like a storm waiting to break. The crowd held its breath, and the world itself seemed to pause. For in that moment, everyone knew humanity had crossed a line, and nothing would ever go back to normal. The night did not end with fire, it ended with silence. The girl was taken, not gently, not kindly, but carefully, as if she were a weapon that might explode with a single breath. Soldiers wrapped her in steel restraints that hummed with strange energy, not ordinary handcuffs, but something built to hold things not human. Her tail burned faintly, still alive, still restless, yet caged for the first time. The crowd was forced back, their shouts fading into the dark as trucks carried her away. She sat in the back of a transport, staring at her hands. The boy who had touched her tail was gone, but his face burned in her memory. Anger, sadness, fear, they swirled in her chest until the fire inside pulsed against the restraints. The soldiers avoided her eyes. They kept their distance, whispering into radios. None of them wanted to admit what they had seen, yet none of them could forget it. Hours later, she was brought underground. Not a prison, not exactly, but a place built for secrets. Metal walls, bright lights, cameras blinking from every corner. Behind the glass, men and women in white coats watched her, their faces hidden behind masks of science. They did not see a girl, they saw a question. One of them, a tall woman with tired eyes, stepped forward. Her voice was calm but sharp. "You are safe here if you cooperate." The girl's lips tightened, her fire flickered. Safe, she thought. Humans use that word when they mean the opposite. But she stayed quiet, waiting, listening. The scientists did not begin with tests. They began with stories. They showed her images of fire, lightning, storms. "Is it like this? Is it energy? Is it plasma?" they asked. She shook her head slowly, whispering, "It is not fire, it is life." But they did not understand. The tall woman leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "Then tell us, what are you?" The girl hesitated, the blue glow on her tail flickering like a candle in the wind. Finally, she whispered, "Half of me is human, half is not." The words fell heavy in the room, heavier than truth should. The scientists scribbled notes, exchanged whispers. They spoke of DNA, of cells that burned like stars, of energy patterns they could not measure. The girl watched them, feeling like an animal under glass. But then something strange happened. One machine in the room began to hum, its lights flickering, as if waking from a dream. It was a simple monitor built to measure her heartbeat. Yet as her tail glowed faintly, the machine responded. The lines on the screen twisted into shapes, not numbers, not waves. Symbols, patterns like writing. The scientists froze, staring. The fire was not only alive, it was speaking. One whispered, "It's communication." Another said, "It's a code, maybe even a language." The girl closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You finally hear it," she whispered. But they did not hear her words, they only heard the machine. From behind the glass, a different group watched. Not scientists, but soldiers, officers, men in suits. They did not write notes. They wrote orders. Where the scientists saw knowledge, they saw weapons. Imagine, one muttered, an army with fire like this. The girl felt their eyes, even through the walls. Her tail flicked in warning, sparks scattering. The machine responded again, lights shifting, symbols dancing. And for a moment, one of the scientists gasped, because the symbols formed something clear, an image of Earth wrapped in blue fire. A warning or a promise, none could tell. The tall woman leaned close again, her voice softer now. You don't want to hurt us, do you? The girl shook her head, whispering, I came here to hide, not to fight. Her words trembled, but the fire glowed steady. She was telling the truth, and the room felt it. But the soldiers outside did not care for truth. They tightened their grip on their orders. The more she tried to explain, the more they saw danger. And danger, to them, was only one thing: control it or destroy it. The scientists argued, voices clashing. She is not a weapon. She is a bridge, one said. She is unstable, too risky, said another. Her fire could power cities, whispered one in awe. Her fire could burn them down, answered the soldier beside him. The girl closed her eyes again, feeling their voices pressing on her skin. Her fire pulsed against the restraints, restless, wanting to break free. But she held it back. She remembered her father's words, whispered long ago under alien stars. Fire is not for war. Fire is for life. Guard it, even when the world demands it as a weapon. In that underground room, humanity faced its first true choice: to see her as a threat or to see her as a miracle. And as the lights flickered and the machines whispered their blue language, the world above continued unaware. But soon, very soon, they too would have to choose. The underground room was never meant to hold a storm. Yet that was what she had become, a storm of fire and fear and hope trapped behind walls of steel. The scientists argued louder each day, their voices clashing like swords. She is dangerous, said one. If she loses control, the fire could swallow us all. She is a miracle, another whispered. She could teach us more than the stars ever have. But the soldiers did not argue, they only watched. Every order they received was simple: contain her, control her, or end her. Behind their cold eyes lay a hunger the girl had seen before on other worlds. The hunger not for truth, not for peace, but for power. And she knew that hunger never stopped, it only grew. One night, the tall woman scientist entered her chamber alone. She placed a hand against the glass, her voice soft. They don't want to study you anymore, she whispered. They want to use you. The girl lifted her head, her tail glowing faintly like a dying star. I am not a weapon, she said, her voice trembling but steady. The woman nodded, pain in her eyes. I know, but they don't care what you are, only what you can do. For a long moment, the two stared at each other. And then the alarm screamed, not the warning of fire or power, but the sound of men preparing for capture. Heavy boots echoed down the corridor. Metal doors slid open. Armored figures stepped inside with weapons that glowed faint red. They did not speak. Their silence was worse than shouting. It was the silence of men who had already chosen violence. The fire inside her tail stirred, restless, furious, alive. The woman shouted at them, Stop! She's not ready. You'll kill her. But they ignored her, raising their weapons. One of them barked an order, Restrain the subject. Subject, the word cut sharper than any blade. She was not a person to them, only a thing. The girl rose slowly, her eyes bright. The restraints hummed as they tried to hold her fire down. But her fear and anger made the flames rise higher, spilling sparks across the floor. The soldiers advanced anyway, their boots stamping closer. And in that moment, the decision was made for her: fight or be taken. Her tail lashed once, the restraints cracked. Blue fire burst across the room, striking the weapons, not the men. The guns melted in their hands, dripping like wax. Sparks leapt to the ceiling. Alarms shrieked louder. Smoke filled the air, blue against the red lights of warning. The soldiers stumbled back, some coughing, some blinded. But one, the leader, pressed forward, his armor glowing with strange shields. He raised a new weapon, a dark rod that pulsed like a heart. The girl's eyes widened. She knew it. It was not human technology. It was stolen from her father's world, from the war she thought she had escaped. She froze, her fire trembling. How did they get it? How much did they already know? The leader smirked. You thought we knew nothing? We've been waiting for you. His words sank into her chest like poison. They hadn't found her by accident. They had been hunting her. The woman scientist screamed, "Don't! You'll kill her." But the leader ignored her, swinging the weapon forward. The blue fire reacted violently, exploding against the walls. The room shook, steel cracked, glass shattered. And in the chaos, the girl broke free. She ran, her fire lighting every corridor like a second sun. Doors burst open. Alarms echoed through every floor. Soldiers chased her, but the fire shielded her, bending bullets, melting barriers. She did not want to kill. She only wanted to escape. Yet every step left marks of flame that would never fade. Through the smoke, she saw the boy again. The same boy who had teased her tale on that quiet street. He had been dragged here for questioning, now trapped behind a locked door. Their eyes met, his full of guilt, hers full of fire. And for reasons even she did not understand, she stopped. With a sweep of her tail, the door melted away. The boy stumbled out, coughing, trembling, yet alive. You came back for me, he whispered. She only nodded, pulling him by the arm. Run, she said, and the fire lit their path. Together they raced through the underground maze. The girl's fire tearing open walls, the boy guiding her through passages. Behind them, soldiers shouted, weapons roared, machines screamed. But the fire was faster, alive, untamed. It carried them upward, toward air, toward freedom. At last, they burst into the night. The city skyline burned blue where her fire touched it. Helicopters circled, searchlights swept. The boy stared in awe, the girl's tail blazing like a comet in the dark. Where do we go now? He gasped. She turned her eyes to the stars, her voice soft but fierce. Not where, but how. How long until humanity decides if I am enemy or ally? The boy swallowed hard. And for the first time, he realized her fire was not just power, it was destiny. The night sky glowed with her flames. The city below trembled, the world above watched. And humanity stood at the edge of war. Not because of what she had done, but because of what they wanted her to be. The fire had carried them far from the city. They hid in the ruins of an old observatory, the giant telescope broken and silent, pointing at nothing. The boy sat on the cold floor, his chest rising and falling fast, his eyes wide with fear and wonder. The girl stood near the cracked glass windows, her tail glowing softly, a calm flame now instead of storm. For the first time since the night began, there was silence. The boy finally spoke, his voice rough. Who are you? What are you? She did not answer right away, her eyes searching the stars as if the truth was written up there. When she turned back, her face was pale, but her voice steady. I'm not one thing, she whispered. I am two. The boy frowned, not understanding. She stepped closer, the blue fire swirling around her like a cloak. My mother was human, she said. She loved this world, its oceans, its skies, its people. Her tail flickered brighter now. My father was not from this world. He came from a place where fire breathes like air. The boy's breath caught, his heart hammering. You mean, aliens are real? And he was one of them. She nodded slowly. My father's people lived with fire, as you live with water. It was part of them, their blood, their soul. Her eyes darkened, but they were hunted, burned in their own flames, until only few remained. The boy leaned forward, whispering, And you? Why are you here? Her voice cracked as she answered. My father brought me to this world because it was safe, because he thought humans would never find us. Her tail whipped once, sparks scattering. But safety was an illusion. Humans are always searching for power. She touched her chest, where the fire glowed strongest. This fire you saw, it is not mine to control fully. It is a legacy. She looked at him, her eyes glowing with sorrow. It lives inside me, bound to my heart. If I lose control, it will not stop. It will consume everything. Her voice lowered. It could burn your entire world. The boy froze, his face pale. You mean you could destroy humanity? She shook her head, tears forming. No, I mean humanity could destroy itself, trying to control me. Her words hung heavy in the broken observatory, heavier than the silence that followed. The boy turned away, pressing his hands to his face. He remembered the soldiers, the strange alien weapon they carried. They already know, don't they? He whispered. That's why they hunted you. She nodded, her fire flickering like a heartbeat. They know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to understand. Her voice grew softer, trembling. They will cut me open, they will break me, not because they hate me, but because they fear what they do not control. Her tail wrapped around her feet like a wounded animal. And if they succeed, the fire will answer to them, not me, and that will be the end of everything. The boy's hand shook, his guilt eating at him. I started this, he muttered. If I hadn't touched your tail, none of this would have happened. But she stepped closer, her fire glowing warm. No, she said firmly. This would have happened anyway. You only revealed what was already boiling beneath. Her hand hovered over his shoulder, not touching but close. You are the first human to feel the fire and survive, she whispered. His eyes shot up, shocked. What do you mean? Her fire flared brighter, wrapping around them both. My father told me the fire chooses who it spares, and it chose you. The boy's heart pounded, fear and awe colliding inside him. Why me, he asked. Her voice softened, almost breaking. Maybe because you represent humanity, reckless, foolish, but still capable of something greater. She turned back to the stars, her tail glowing brighter now. The silence returned, heavy but alive. Then, the broken telescope above them flickered, its glass catching her fire. For a moment, the stars themselves reflected in blue flame, forming shapes, maps. The boy gasped as he realized what he was seeing. They're not just stars, they're places. She nodded slowly. The fire carries memory, not just mine, but my father's, my people's, all burned into the flames. The boy stared at the map, glowing across the observatory ceiling. Planets, systems, battles, all hidden inside her fire. This is proof, he whispered, proof that humanity is not alone. Her eyes narrowed, her tail flickering. Proof is dangerous, she said. Proof makes people want more, and more leads to war. The boy swallowed hard, looking at her in awe and fear. You're saying, if humanity learns the truth, it might destroy itself. She nodded once, the fire dimming again. Her final words cut through the silence like steel. Humanity has a choice, to see me as a threat, or to see me as a warning. She turned her glowing eyes to him. And you must decide which truth you will carry to them. The boy trembled under her gaze. For the first time, he realized her fire was not just a weapon, not just a danger. It was a story, one that could save humanity or burn it alive. The night at the observatory did not stay quiet for long. The girl and the boy thought they had bought time, but time was not theirs to keep. Engines growled in the distance. Searchlights cut across the hills. The fire inside her tail stirred, restless, warning her before the sound even reached. They are coming, she whispered, her eyes burning with blue light. The boy turned, fear racing through him. Soldiers again? He asked. But her face darkened, her tail flickered violently. No, she said, not soldiers, something worse. From the dark sky, shapes descended, not helicopters, not human machines. They moved like predators, silent, sleek, with wings that shimmered black against the stars. The boy's heart froze as 3 figures stepped into the ruins. They were not human, not even close. Their bodies were tall, armored in skin that glowed faintly red. Their eyes burned like coals, and each of them carried a weapon shaped like her father's, alive with stolen fire. The girl stepped forward, her own flames rising. Her voice cracked with both fear and fury. "Hunters," she spat. The boy swallowed hard. "Hunters? You mean from your father's world?" She nodded once, never taking her eyes off them. "They are fire takers. They steal what they cannot create. They drain it and leave only ash." The hunters moved closer, their steps slow, confident. One raised his weapon, his voice deep and sharp. "You are the last spark of your line, the half-blood, the mistake. We will take the fire and end your kind forever." Her tail blazed bright, casting shadows across the ruins. "You will not touch this world," she said, her voice breaking into a roar. The boy wanted to run, but his legs refused. The air itself felt heavy, pressing down on his chest. The hunter's weapons hummed, pulling at her fire. The blue flames wavered, drawn like threads toward the red glow. The girl gritted her teeth, fighting to hold it back. Her knees shook, her hands burned with light. The boy shouted, They're stealing it from you." She dropped to one knee, her fire flickering weak. But then something strange happened. The boy reached out without thinking, his hand brushing her tail again. The fire surged, not away, but into him. Blue light wrapped around his arms, his chest, his heart. And instead of burning him, it steadied him. The hunters froze, their eyes narrowing. "This is not possible," one hissed. But it was happening. The fire was not only hers, it was choosing. The boy gasped, his voice shaking. "I can feel it, it's alive." The girl lifted her head, her eyes wide with shock. "You shouldn't, it should have killed you." But the boy stood taller, the blue fire flowing between them like a bridge. "Maybe it didn't choose me for what I am," he said, his voice trembling. "Maybe it chose me for what I could become." The hunters roared, raising their weapons. The ground cracked under their fury. The girl rose again, her fire flaring stronger. Now it wasn't just hers, it was theirs shared, balanced. The blue flames no longer trembled, they sang. A deep hum filled the ruins, shaking the stones, bending the stars above. The first hunter charged, his weapon burning red. But the fire moved before the girl did. It wrapped around him, burning away his weapon, melting it into nothing. He screamed as the flames pushed him back. Not consumed, but rejected. The fire did not want him. The second hunter leapt, striking at the boy. The girl cried out, her fire snapping into a shield around him. The blow struck, but did not pierce. For the first time, the boy understood her struggle. Not to destroy, but to protect. And in that moment, he did not feel fear, only purpose. The third hunter raised his weapon high, shouting in a language the boy could not understand. The girl understood, her face twisting in grief. "They will burn this world to take me," she whispered. The boy clenched his fists, the fire burning brighter in him. "Then we stopped them. Together, the battle shook the observatory. Blue and red fire clashed, lighting the hills, the sky, the broken telescope. The hunters fought with rage, but the girl fought with memory. Her father's voice echoed in her heart. Fire is life. Protect it, even when the world demands war. And now the boy's voice joined hers, steady and strong. "We protect, we don't destroy." With one final strike, their fire combined. Blue flames surged higher than the ruins. The hunters screamed, their weapons shattering. The earth itself glowed under the force. And when the light finally dimmed, the hunters were gone. Only ash remained where they had stood. The boy collapsed, gasping, his skin glowing faintly blue. The girl caught him, her fire soft now, almost tender. "You should not have survived," she whispered, her eyes wide. But he looked at her and managed a weak smile. "Maybe humanity was never meant to just watch you. Maybe we were meant to stand with you." Her chest tightened, her fire humming low. For the first time, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. But hope was dangerous. And in the distance, sirens screamed again, louder, closer. Humans were coming, not knowing what they would find, and humanity's choice was drawing near. The observatory ruins still smoked, the ground still glowing with the ashes of the hunters. The boy lay weak, his body trembling, the blue fire still faint inside his chest. The girl knelt beside him, her tail curling protectively around them both. For the first time since her secret was revealed, she felt safe. But safety never lasted long. Engines thundered across the hills, louder than before. Dozens of trucks, armored vehicles, and helicopters surrounded the mountain. Searchlights tore through the night, cutting across her fire like blades. The girl rose slowly, her tail glowing bright. "They are here," she whispered, her voice sharp. The boy struggled to sit up, his breath short. You can't fight them all," he said. She looked down at him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I don't want to fight them," she replied, "but they will not listen." The first soldiers appeared at the edge of the ruins, their weapons raised, their armor gleaming under the blue glow. Behind them, men in suits watched with cold eyes. One of them lifted a speaker, his voice echoing across the broken walls. "You are surrounded. Surrender, or we will open fire." The girl's flames rose higher, answering without words. The boy stood shakily at her side, the fire sparking faintly from his hands. "She is not your enemy," he shouted, his voice cracking. But the soldiers did not lower their weapons. To them, he was only a boy caught in the storm. The girl's heart pounded, her fire trembling between shield and storm. And then something unexpected happened. The crowd arrived, the same people who had seen her on the street that night. Shopkeepers, children, strangers who had recorded the blue fire on their phones. They pushed past the soldiers, their voices rising. "Stop! Don't hurt her!" The soldiers hesitated, their line breaking for the first time. The people shouted louder. "She showed us the truth. She saved us. She is not a weapon. She is a warning." The boy's chest swelled with hope, but the girl shook her head. "Words will not be enough," she whispered. The suits gave the order. The weapons charged, glowing red like the hunter's stolen tech. The soldiers aimed, the crowd screamed. And in that moment, the girl knew what she had to do. She stepped forward, raising her arms, her fire rising higher than ever. But this time, it was not a fire of rage. It was not a fire of war. It was a fire of truth. The blue flames spread across the sky, not burning, not destroying, but showing. Visions filled the air, stars, planets, wars, her father's people, the hunters, everything. The fire painted the sky with her story, with the danger, with the warning. The soldiers froze, their weapons shaking. The crowd fell silent, staring upward in awe. Even the men in suits could not look away. For the first time, all of humanity was seeing not just her power, but her purpose. The boy's voice rang out, louder than before. "Look at her. She is not here to destroy us. She is here to show us what we could become." The blue fire spread across the soldiers' weapons. Instead of melting them, it dissolved the stolen red cores. The alien tech shattered, turning to ash in their hands. The soldiers gasped, unarmed, powerless. The girl's fire did not harm them. It freed them. The suits shouted in anger, demanding control. But the soldiers no longer listened. The people no longer listened. The girl's fire burned in their hearts, not as fear, but as memory. They had seen the truth, and truth could not be contained. The girl lowered her arms, her fire dimming to a soft glow. Her voice carried across the ruins, calm but firm. "Humanity, you must choose," she said. "You can see me as a monster, or you can see me as a mirror. What you choose now will shape your future." The silence was long, heavy, and then, slowly, the soldiers lowered their weapons. The crowd cheered, their voices rising like a wave. The boy looked at her, tears in his eyes. "They believe you," he whispered. But the girl shook her head, her gaze turning upward. "They believe now, but belief is fragile," she said. "The fire has shown them a path, but the choice will never stop. Every day, they must choose again. Her tail glowed brighter, her eyes softening. And I must keep walking until they no longer need me. The boy grabbed her hand, his fire sparking weak but real. Then I'll walk with you, he said, his voice steady. She looked at him, surprised, and smiled faintly. You may be the first human the fire has trusted, she whispered. Maybe that means you are ready. The sky above shimmered with the last of her fire. The stars seemed closer, brighter, alive. She raised her eyes to them, her voice a soft vow. This is only the beginning. The crowd watched her, the soldiers stood in silence. And the world that had once feared her now waited, holding its breath. For humanity had seen blue fire, and nothing would ever be the same.